The sunlight was painfully bright when Rihan opened his eyes, as if the day itself had questions waiting for him. His head throbbed with a deep, hot ache, and his throat felt like sandpaper. But it wasn't the hangover that truly jolted him awake. It was the soft but steady sound of someone breathing nearby. As he struggled to focus, he pushed himself up on his elbows and froze. This wasn't his room. This wasn't his bed. And the woman sitting on the edge of the chair, watching him with a mixture of concern and exhaustion, was someone he barely knew. Her name was Marwa, a quiet coworker who rarely spoke more than a polite hello. She looked at him with tired eyes and said the words that turned his stomach cold, "You don't remember last night? I got you into bed." His heart thundered in his chest, panic slicing through the fog in his mind. He swallowed hard, looked down, and whispered back in confusion, "Where are my clothes then?" Before the story unfolds further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that show the power of simple human goodness, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Chronicles. Your support helps us keep spreading emotional and inspiring stories every day. The room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and sunlight, and for a long moment, Rihan couldn't move. The day was shining outside the window, a calm morning with birds chirping, but inside him, everything was shaking. Shame, fear, confusion, he felt all of it pressing on his chest. Marwa didn't look away as she explained that she had found him outside the office building last evening, half-conscious, exhausted, and so drenched from the sudden rain that he could barely speak. She had tried calling his friends, but no one answered. The security guard insisted someone needed to take responsibility for him before he fainted from the cold. So she took him home, changed him into spare clothes her brother had left years ago, and let him sleep on her bed while she sat awake half the night in the chair. Rihan listened in stunned silence, unsure whether to feel grateful or humiliated. All he knew was that he had no memory of anything beyond sitting alone at his desk after office hours, stressed, hungry, and exhausted from weeks of nonstop deadlines. He tried to stand, but dizziness washed over him. Marwa gently insisted he sit back. Her voice wasn't accusing or defensive. It was simply calm, like she had nothing to hide and nothing to gain. That made him feel even worse. He wasn't used to people helping him. Not without expecting something in return. And not without mocking him later. His life had been a long pattern of disappointments, friends who left, relationships that cracked under pressure, and a constant battle with his own self-worth. He worked hard, too hard sometimes, pushing himself to burnout just to prove he wasn't failing. But last night had clearly crossed a line he didn't even realize he was near. As the hours passed, Rihan slowly gathered himself while Marwa prepared breakfast in the kitchen, a quiet, gentle space filled with sunlight. He listened to the clinking of utensils and felt the weight of his thoughts. Something about this woman's silence spoke louder than any judgment. When she finally brought him a plate of warm toast and eggs, she placed it gently on the table beside him. He thanked her softly, expecting awkwardness, but she simply nodded and sat across the room, giving him space. That small act of respect surprised him. Most people would have filled the silence with questions or jokes or assumptions. But she didn't. Rihan forced himself to eat. Every bite felt like swallowing guilt. He kept replaying the night in his mind, trying to make sense of how he had ended up in such a vulnerable state. The pressure at work, the grief of losing his mother 2 months ago, the loneliness of living alone, everything had piled up until his mind shut down. He had thought he was managing, pretending to be strong even on days he could barely breathe. Last night must have been the moment his body stopped pretending with him. Later, when he finally stood up again, he thanked Marwa for everything. She told him quietly that she didn't do it for praise. She did it because she couldn't leave someone suffering when help was in her reach. That simple sentence hit him harder than any emotional speech could. On the way out, she handed him his clothes, washed and neatly folded. He hesitated at the door, knowing something inside him had shifted but not knowing how to express it. She opened the door for him and said he could call her if he ever felt overwhelmed again. Not romantically. Not dramatically. Just as a human being who saw another human being struggling. Over the next few weeks, Rihan found himself thinking about her more than he expected. Not with romance, but with gratitude and curiosity. She had shown him a form of kindness he didn't know still existed in the world. He started observing her at work, how she always helped others without boasting, how she smiled quietly when thanked, how she carried a sadness in her eyes that she never spoke about. He wondered what her story was. Why she lived alone. Why silence seemed to be her companion. Gradually, their conversations grew. Sometimes short, sometimes unexpectedly deep. One afternoon, during a lunch break, she admitted that she used to have a younger brother who died in a road accident years ago, and since then, she had been living with the quiet ache of loneliness. She said seeing Rihan that night had reminded her of her brother, lost, vulnerable, needing someone to step in. He listened to her story with a heavy heart and felt a strange connection forming, not built on romance, but on shared pain and unspoken understanding. Day by day, small changes began to light up Rihan's life. He started taking better care of himself, eating on time, sleeping more, reducing his workload. He wasn't magically healed, but he was learning to breathe again. And whenever he felt himself slipping, a quiet message from Marwa appeared on his phone. "Are you okay today?" It was a simple sentence, but it anchored him every time. One day, while they walked back from the office in broad daylight, the city buzzing around them, Rihan suddenly stopped. He felt overwhelmed by a memory, the moment he had woken up in her room, terrified, ashamed, unaware of where he was. He realized then that if she hadn't helped him that night, he could have fallen dangerously deep into depression. Her kindness had become a turning point he hadn't seen coming. Without thinking, he told her that she had saved him in ways she didn't understand. Marwa's eyes softened, and she said quietly that sometimes, saving someone else is the only way to save yourself. Their bond deepened, though it remained unspoken, gentle, respectful. Friends at work began to notice they spent more time together, but neither of them corrected or confirmed anything. They simply existed in a space where both felt safe. And in a world full of assumptions and broken expectations, that safety mattered. Months passed, and the seasons changed. Rihan slowly rebuilt himself, not through grand achievements, but through small victories, learning to rest, learning to open up, learning to let someone care. And Marwa, who had spent years carrying her grief alone, began smiling again, slowly, quietly, as if rediscovering the feeling. Then, one afternoon, something unexpected happened. Rihan received a promotion, a big one. He felt proud, but instead of celebrating with the office, he walked straight to the rooftop where Marwa usually spent her breaks. She was standing there with the daytime sun falling gently on her face. When he told her the news, she smiled sincerely, the kind of smile that holds pride, relief, and warmth all at once. He thanked her again, telling her he couldn't have reached this point without her support. She shook her head, insisting he had done the hard work. But he knew the truth. Every step he took had been steadied by her quiet presence. As they stood there, the wind brushing against them, Rihan finally asked the question he had been avoiding for months. Could they be a part of each other's lives, not because of obligation, not because of shared pain, but because they had found something pure in each other? Marwa didn't answer immediately. She looked at the sky, her eyes soft with emotion, and then she nodded gently. Not a dramatic yes, but a peaceful one. A yes that meant healing, patience, loyalty, and understanding. As the story of their connection unfolded under that bright sky, one thing became clear: sometimes the most unexpected people walk into your life on the day you break, not to judge or rescue dramatically, but to simply offer quiet kindness, the kind that rewrites your entire path. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Chronicles. Your support helps bring more emotional, inspiring stories to life.